If all goes well, the end of this nightmare is in sight. Hamas fighters walking the 4 young Israeli soldiers they've held for 477 days since the awful events of October 7th to a podium in Gaza City. Karina Ariev, Daniela Gilboa, Liri Olbag and Nama Levy wave at the cameras they know are beaming footage back home to their friends and families.
I'm excited, but we knew this moment would come. We had no doubt it would come. It's been too long. They're on their way home and we're waiting for all the other hostages.
In return, in Ramallah, the West Bank, Israel began releasing Palestinian prisoners, 200 in total, some taken by minibus to Khan Yunis, Gaza.
We thank the Palestinian resistance, specifically Al-Qassam brigades and Al-Quds brigades, and we thank every Palestinian resistance fighter.
But those who'd been convicted of the most violent crimes won't be allowed home, instead deported outside the Palestinian territories, this bus crossing the border to Egypt. Large swathes of Gaza lie in ruins. For the ordinary Gazans whose lives have been torn asunder by Israel's devastating pursuit of Hamas, the ceasefire is the chance of a new beginning. But nothing is certain. Hamas, still able to turn out foot soldiers and heavy weapons, are not vanquished. And moments after the 4 hostages were handed over to the Red Cross, Israel said Hamas had reneged on another part of the deal for failing to release civilian Arbel Yehud. Until she's free, they're refusing to allow Palestinians back to northern Gaza. Wadi Gaza is effectively now an internal border with the south, where families gather and wait.
Hamas failed to meet its obligations to first release Israeli female civilian hostages as part of the agreement.
Whatever the cause of the delay, hugs for the children they feared they'd never see alive again. Just some of the families who've been ripped apart since October 7th.
I love you, all the citizens of Israel who supported our families and our soldiers who did everything for us. Thank you very much. I love you.
Heartfelt reunions in Israel and the Palestinian territories. But beyond the numbers and the stark asymmetry of the 2 prisoner swaps, this ceasefire is far from guaranteed, with negotiations for what's called Stage 2 of the deal due to start this week. Well, just before we came on air, I spoke to Jennifer Gavito, who's a former US diplomat and now a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. I asked her about the delayed release of civilian hostage Arbel Yehud and how much of a problem it might cause.
There is a great deal of speculation about why that might be. There have been accusations that perhaps she's being held not by Hamas, but by Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and that still has to be worked out. Whatever the reason, the release of the 4 IDF soldiers this morning, surrounded by Hamas fighters, presented quite a striking picture.
Right.
And that might have, in fact, been what Hamas was agitating for. That being said, the Israeli government was very quick to point out that this was a violation of the ceasefire agreement. And my understanding is that there are urgent negotiations happening as we speak.
And you mentioned the footage that we've all been seeing of the 4 soldiers. To what extent is that going to make it more difficult for the moderates in Israel to continue to work towards a ceasefire and a durable one at that?
Despite the Israeli government's assertions and attempts, Hamas still exists and continues to be a force to be reckoned with. And so in my mind, that really just reinforces the urgency of moving ahead with the ceasefire. In fact, figuring out how to get Palestinian Authority control over Gaza in order to displace Hamas. And more importantly, down the road, the importance of rebuilding, showing Palestinians that there is a different path that doesn't involve Hamas leadership, and that there, with Israel is some sort of pathway to peace.
And how realistic do you think it is that Palestinians do find a way to support other leaders in Gaza that are less likely to choose a militant path?
certainly more challenging than it was pre-October 7th. The Palestinian Authority has been, through its own actions and through Israeli actions, has really been undermined, diminished over the course of many years. And so there's a lot involved with this, as both of the recent U.S. administrations have spoken about. You have to reform the Palestinian Authority. You have to give Israel confidence that its borders will be secure. I mean, these are years-long undertakings. This is not a short-term project. And before you can do any of that, you have to find a way to rebuild Gaza. You have to provide homes, food, really critical humanitarian assistance. And so far, there doesn't seem to be a good plan in place to do any of that.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. We're grateful for your insights.
Take care.